Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents are accused of forcefully dragging a Native American man from a car and detaining him during the increasing tensions in Minneapolis. More than 2,000 ICE agents and other federal officers descended on the city in what the Trump administration insists is an immigration enforcement action. At least 5 Native Americans have been detained. Several others have had confrontations with ICE agents. The crackdown is roundly condemned by local and state community leaders. We'll talk to some of those caught up in the action and what more might be in store elsewhere.
This is National Native News. I'm Antonia Gonzalez. Native community members in Minneapolis, Minnesota held a press conference Friday to discuss immediate needs, resources, and plans for community care following the fatal shooting of 37-year-old Renee Good by an ICE agent last week in the city. Members of Native organizations and grassroots groups have set up 2 hubs in Minneapolis for people to gather and organize. Members of the Native community are also conducting street patrols. Robert Lilligren is the president and CEO of the Native American Community Development Institute and a member of the Metropolitan Urban Indian Directors. He says the Native community does not feel safe with the federal presence, adding they're receiving reports of ICE interactions with Native people and detainment.
As a community, I know we are skilled at protecting our people, protecting our assets, protecting our non-Native people and their assets. And we've had to do this over and over again, historic.
Nikki Love is the executive director of the Tawahi Foundation and a member of the Metropolitan Urban Indian Directors.
We're all here to keep each other safe. And it's very important that we think about not just as Native nations, but that's very important, right? But also as Native individuals, exercise our sovereign rights.
Leaders say they're working with Native organizations, grassroots groups, and tribal leaders to address the ICE presence in their community. Meanwhile, tribal leaders across the country are raising concerns about ICE activities and the safety of their tribal citizens, including leaders in South Dakota, after the detainment of tribal members in Minneapolis. South Dakota Public Broadcasting CJ Keene has more.
A statement from the office of President Frank Starr comes out of the Oglala Sioux tribe, says he is aware of reports of the detainment of 4 Oglala tribal members by ICE in Minneapolis. In the report, an Oglala bystander was able to get their tribal identities, but unable to get their names. In the statement, President Starr comes out, writes, quote, "All Native people born within the territorial limits of the United States are recognized as U.S. citizens by birth. Because I'm both a tribal citizen and a U.S. citizen, ICE has no lawful authority to detain me." In another statement, Standing Rock Sioux Tribe Chairman Steve Sitting Bear writes, quote, "Our nation is a sovereign government, and our members are not immigrants. We are not subject to immigration enforcement on our own lands." He goes on to say that ICE activity is not welcome or authorized on the lands of the Standing Rock Reservation, and that unauthorized personnel will be escorted from the reservation. South Dakota is not immune from the recent wave of immigration crackdowns, as immigration arrests and operations have been reported in communities across the state in recent months. I'm CJ Keene in Rapid City.
Last week, a former White Mountain Apache police officer in Arizona was arrested, stemming from a 15-count grand jury indictment alleging serial sexual abuse and kidnapping. As KJZZ's Gabriel Pietrozio reports, federal law enforcement authorities are now asking for any additional victims to come forward.
Carl Eugene Leslie is accused of sexually abusing and kidnapping 3 victims while on duty between 2020 and 2023. All are White Mountain Apache, and one is a minor. FBI Phoenix Special Agent in charge, Heath Yankee, thinks there's others.
We have to be careful, so I won't be able to talk a lot of specifics outside of what's in the actual indictment. What I can say is we believe there are more victims out there.
Leslie's nearly 2-decade career ended in 2024.
There's no preclusion of a victim coming forward, no matter how far it may have gone back. We just need to know who they are and the facts behind that.
Leslie has been assigned an attorney out of Flagstaff who declined to comment. If convicted on all counts, he faces up to a life sentence and a $250,000 fine. I'm Gabriel Pietrozio.
And I'm Antonia Gonzalez.
National Native News is produced by Koahnic Broadcast Corporation with funding by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Support for law and justice-related programming provided by Hobbs, Strauss, Dean & Walker, LLP, a national law firm dedicated to promoting and defending tribal rights for over 40 years. More information available at hobbsstrauss.com. Tribal Development Partners, helping tribes build toward their goals through 105L leasing and essential facility development, empowering sovereignty, strengthening community. More at tribaldevpartners.com, proud supporters of this show.
Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.
This is Native America Calling. I'm Sean Spruce. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is pledging to send hundreds of additional federal agents to aid in an immigration crackdown in Minneapolis, Minnesota. This comes after a recent fatal shooting by an ICE agent that sparked thousands in the city to protest this past weekend. Since the crackdown, at least 5 Native men have been detained by immigration agents. 4 of them are from the Oglala Sioux tribe in South Dakota, according to the tribe's president, and another is a descendant from Minnesota's Red Lake Nation. Today on our show, we'll hear from Native people in Minneapolis amid rising tensions in the city since the shooting. Later in the hour, we'll hear how millions of gallons of water are expected to be withdrawn from a Virginia tribe's nearby river without their consultation. Listeners, you can join us with your comments and questions by calling 1-800-996-2848. That is also 1-800-99-NATIVE. Joining us now from Milwaukee, Wisconsin is Amelia Schaefer. She is the North Central Bureau correspondent for ICT News. She is a descendant from Brothertown Indian Nation. Amelia, hello and welcome to Native America Calling.
Hello, thanks for having me.
And joining us from Crystal, Minnesota is Shantia Sosa Clara. She is the aunt to Jose Ramirez, and she is a Red Lake Nation descendant. Shantia, hello, and it's good to have you on the show as well.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, Amelia, I'm going to begin with you. You had reported that at least 5 Native American men have been detained by ICE during this immigration enforcement. We'll talk in a moment about one of them, Jose Ramirez. What are the other instances?
Yeah, so the other 4 men, that originates from a post made by Oglala Sioux Tribe President Frank Starr comes out. The president raised awareness that he had been informed at least 4 tribal members, all of whom were experiencing homelessness, had been detained in an encampment near the Little Earth housing unit. And there's really not a lot of information about this men. From calling around to local homelessness advocacy centers, I found that one of the men had been released after a 12-hour hold, but they were unaware of what condition he's in or where he may have gone. So because of the fact that they were experiencing homelessness, it's really hard to track these individuals or figure out where they might have gone.
Tell us more about what it actually means to be detained in this situation. Were they stopped and confronted and questioned, or were they just simply taken into custody?
Yeah, so what I've been hearing a lot of from people who have been stopped and questioned around the Minneapolis area is that officers or agents rather, ICE agents will come up to them, approach them, ask for documentation, and if they're not able to supply documentation fast enough or sufficient documentation, they are taken and transported often to the Whipple building in Minneapolis for processing. That's what I heard from Jose, who we'll be hearing more about later, of course, from his aunt. But what I'm hearing is that they're taken in for more processing, and they stay there. Jose told me he was there for 6 hours total.
Okay, 6 hours. These interactions, any other information, any other details our listeners should consider here?
Well, this isn't from Minnesota, but in November, some people may remember hearing about Leticia Jacobo, who was placed on an ICE hold in the Polk County Jail in Des Moines, Iowa. She never technically interacted with ICE officials. However, Polk County Corrections, in what they're calling a clerical error, flagged her for ICE processing and detainment. So if her family wouldn't have stepped in, she would have been taken into ICE custody and processed the way that we're seeing happening to a lot of individuals in Minneapolis right now. So this isn't the first time that Native individuals have had this type of encounter with immigration control. And often what I'm hearing is that it comes from a misunderstanding or an assumption from agents that these individuals are Latino.
Okay. We did a story. We made that the focus of one of our shows, the incident in Iowa. And we also just talked with Elaine Miles, the famous Native American actor up in Seattle that also had a confrontation with ICE agents. Amelia, thank you so much. Of course, we're going to go back to you. We're going to talk more also about Jose Ramirez. But first, I want to bring in another guest. This is Little Crow Belcourt, who joins us now from Minneapolis, Minnesota. He is the executive director of the Indigenous Protector Movement and a citizen of the Bad River Chippewa tribe. Crow, hello, and welcome to Native America Calling.
Good afternoon.
Crow, what can you tell us about what is happening right now in Minneapolis? More protests over the weekend. At least 5,000 people gathered in Powderhorn Park near where an ICE agent fatally shot a 37-year-old woman, Renee Good. Department of Homeland Security says it's sending hundreds more federal agents. What are you and others feeling right now?
Oh, man, it's pretty tough in South Minneapolis right now, Little Earth area, Franklin Avenue. Yesterday, we had a prayer vigil. The keeper of the White Buffalo Calf Bundle, Sacred Pipe, Orville Looking Horse was in town. Led us in prayer yesterday at Paulo Grounds Coffee Shop. That's kind of our hub right here on Franklin Avenue.
Okay, now, Crow, we were just talking about some of these interactions between ICE agents and Native Americans with Amelia Schaefer. What can you tell us about ICE agents stopping or detaining Native residents anywhere there in the Twin Cities right now?
Yeah, she kind of explained it pretty good. You know, that's what we're coming across too, is a lot of our people in the neighborhood, travel by city bus or by foot, around here. And I sing down at the Minneapolis American Indian Center helping the youth and others, with drum and dance, and we had to suspend drum and dance because a lot of our people walk to the Indian Center or they take public transportation. And it's pretty tough, man. The ICE agents outnumber our Minneapolis police.
It sure sounds like it.
Yeah.
The Little Earth housing community, anyone who is familiar with the urban Native community there in Minneapolis knows what an important place that is. A lot of urban Native people live there. There's a lot of programming, a lot of services in that area. And you had mentioned in another interview that ICE agents were going door to door at the Little Earth housing community. What are they looking for, and how are residents responding to these ICE agents knocking on their doors?
These ICE agents are coming from who knows where, but a lot of them don't really know our community, and they don't even know that Little Earth is an all-Native housing projects here right in the city. I think they think that we all live up in the woods or we all live out on the plains and teepees and things like that. Hard for them to fathom that we have such a vibrant Native community here in the Twin Cities. And
now
a lot of our people are getting mistaken, for our relatives south of the border. And a lot of our this generation coming up are mixed with Latinos and those from South America and Central America.
Crow, Jacob Fry, the mayor of Minneapolis, says that ICE is mainly targeting Latino and Somali people. Your organization, Indigenous Protector Movement, do you work with people in those populations as well?
Yeah, yep. We have coalitions working with them, unity in the community. We do a lot of work with our Black brothers and sisters, Somalian community, Latino community. Yes, we do.
Now, more ICE agents on the way. How do you think people will react to an even larger number of agents in the city?
Man, everybody here is like on edge, People don't want to send their children to school. And that's who I'm really concerned about is our young people. I was just in a meeting with a lot of people, and I made that comment about I'm worried about the kid who wants to walk to Cedar Foods a block away from Little Earth community that might get picked up. I mean, I drive to the store and I'll come across ICE at least once or twice, going down the street. It's a pretty tough situation here.
So what's your message to Native people right now in terms of possibly having to interact with ICE? And like you say, like parents or grandparents or aunties and uncles with young children.
My message is when you come across ICE is to stay calm. And if you are First Nation, if you're Native American, you let them know that the first thing. You say, hey, man, I was here before any of you colonizers were here. And show them your ID. You know, show them your tribal ID if you have one. Pull it out. Let them know who you are. And even that's becoming a problem. We got ICE agents who are, we have reports that they're saying that your tribal ID is fake. And a tribal ID is a federal ID. It's even better than a state ID.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my message.
Do you have any experience with anyone actually calling out ICE agents and referring to them as colonizers and, hey, I'm Native. You don't need to tell me anything.
Yeah.
How do they react to that? I'm curious to know.
Yeah, they just don't say nothing. They don't know what to think about it, I don't think they're used to hearing that. My sister Rachel Dion Thunder, she got pulled over right across the street from Paul Brown's coffee shop, and there was, I think, 2 carloads of ice, and luckily we had a lot of people run across the street, and as soon as they ran over, they were outnumbered, and they jumped in their rides and tucked tail and got out there. But they're very brazen, man. They'll make little comments, and some of the stuff I can't even say on the air.
Well, give me a hint, though. I mean, like, what are they derogatory comments towards Native people? Or
yes. Yes. I was told not to cuss online on the air here, so I'm not
okay.
gonna.
All right. Hey, no problem, Crow. Really appreciate you coming on the show here. We're going to take a short break. We're going to come back. We will talk more with Little Crow Belcourt along with our other guests. We are focusing right now on Minneapolis, Minnesota, and what is happening there with regard to ICE agents and protests. Anyone listening to the show right now, maybe you are in the Minneapolis area yourself, or you're in the state of Minnesota, or you're just concerned about what's going on. You have thoughts, you've got perspectives, or maybe some questions to ask. We've got people on the show today who can answer questions and provide more insight. So pick up the phone, give us a call. The number is 1-800-996-2848. Again, that number is 1-800-996-2848. Our studio is in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and our producers are standing by, and they're waiting for you to call. So pick up your phone, call now, 1-800-99-NATIVE. A number of affordable housing units specifically focused on Native American residents are coming online in urban areas across the country. They include a 45-unit complex being built in Chicago. That city's first such project will include features that relate to cultural traditions from various area tribes. We'll find out what is fueling a boost in Native affordable housing on the next Native America Calling.
Every family caregiver could use help finding the necessary resources to care for their loved one. The AARP Family Caregiver Resource Guide helps family caregivers access key programs, services, and agencies in their communities. A copy of the guide is available by calling 877-333-5885 or online at aarp.org/caregiverresources. AARP supports this show.
Thank you for listening to Native America Calling. We are hearing from Minneapolis, Minnesota's Native community on the large-scale immigration operation that has left one city resident dead and thousands to protest. Later in the hour, we'll hear from a leader of a tribe in Virginia who says she was not consulted over plans to withdraw billions of gallons of water a year to a drying county and a data center. You can join us with comments and questions by calling 1-800-996-2848. You can also leave a comment on our website and social media pages like Facebook and Instagram. Let's go back now to Amelia Schaefer. She is the North Central Bureau correspondent for ICT News. And Amelia, you talked a little bit earlier about Oglala Sioux Tribal President Frank Starr comes out, and also Minnesota Lieutenant Governor and White Earth citizen Peggy Flanagan, who have both addressed these arrests we're talking about today. What are you hearing from state and tribal leaders right now about these recent detainments?
Well, from tribal leaders, I'm hearing kind of like what Little Crow mentioned, a urging for citizens to make sure they have their ID, but also to emphasize that they are from a federally recognized tribal nation. And while the concern is that a lot of federal agents in general, but particularly these ICE agents, may not be familiar with tribal IDs or tribal sovereignty, there's just a general urgency from leaders to make sure you have these documents. What I've heard from a lot of tribes in Minnesota is they're making it a lot more accessible for enrolled members to easily renew or access tribal IDs. Earlier last week, I spoke with some leaders from Mille Lacs who have lowered the age to possess a tribal ID from over 12 to just 5 years old. So making it a lot more accessible, as we see schools in the Minnesota area have been subject to immigration raids. Just that way that tribal leaders, tribal citizens can have that protection. What I heard from Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan last week was that there's an obvious concern that this is blatant racial profiling happening in the community. Flanagan emphasized that Native people have been here since time immemorial. There's no one that's been a citizen of this country longer than Native people, and that her heart was breaking to hear what's been happening to people like Jose or these 4 Oglala Lakota men who we still don't know the whereabouts of nearly 5 days later. We don't know exactly what day they were taken, and we don't know where they are now. So there's just a general concern from tribal leaders to make sure citizens are safe and protected and have the ID that they need.
All right. Thank you, Amelia. Let's hear now from Shantia Sosa Clara, the aunt of Jose Ramirez, one of the men who was detained by ICE. Shantia, your nephew, Jose, he called you Thursday morning to say he was being followed by what turned out to be these agents. Now, this is the day after Renee Good was fatally shot, and you met your nephew in a parking lot. Can you describe what happened next?
Yes, he had called me, and I told him if they pulled him over. He said no, but they put their mask on, and I said, okay, then it's probably ICE. They pull you over, just pull over and follow command. He said, I'm scared. I said, you're a citizen, you're Native, don't be scared. And as I was coming up to the Hy-Vee, he was at the stoplight there, and they turned on their lights. I said, they pulled you over? He goes, yeah, they just did. I said, okay, pull in, get into Hy-Vee right away. He pulls into Hy-Vee, I pull in behind him, and these agents get out the car, guns drawn, told me to move my effing car. Multiple times I yelled, we are citizens, we are Native, and I moved my car. Thought we were given the okay to leave. As I called the police prior to that, they were there at scene, and he gets into my vehicle and we go to leave, and we were swarmed by these agents, and we were looking for the ID that I just handed to him, and we currently still do not have that ID. I'm not sure what happened to it, but we did have it. I stated we were citizens, we were Native American multiple times. They proceeded to give multiple commands. It was very scary. They said they were going to scan his face, and I said, let them scan you. And as they were scanning his face, an agent came and punched the phone out of my nephew's hands and started attacking. And I just remember bear hugging him. And they reached in on my side. An officer punched me in my arm, or an agent. Another agent was pulling me away. They got my nephew out, had him on top of another car, detained him, and they left.
Now, you recorded this interaction. At the time, did you understand what the law enforcement officers were actually looking for? Did they make it clear what they wanted?
No, they never did. He was being followed, racially profiled.
What's been the response you've received since the video was released?
I've received a lot of good community support and also a lot of negative.
And your nephew, how's he doing right now?
We're doing okay. We're both just very traumatized. For the most part, we are in hiding. We don't know what to do, if we'll be a target next, leaving our homes. We're just staying indoors.
Shantia, did you, last week when all this started to happen and the protests began and the shooting, did you have any thought beforehand, like what to do in case you or one of your family members was confronted by ICE? Did you in any way expect that this would happen to your family?
No, never did I.
How much of a presence is there right now where you are outside of Minneapolis with regard to ICE?
I'm seeing a heavy presence of ICE agents. I've been hearing they've been in the community going door to door. I don't go out.
You're in Crystal, Minnesota. Please, for our listeners who aren't familiar with the geography, how far are you from Minneapolis? And if this immigration crackdown persists, what is your plan? I mean, you say you're in hiding now. How long can you stay this way?
I'm about 10 minutes from Minneapolis area. And as far as how long can I stay in hiding, that I do not know. I just feel there's no other way out. There's no protection. I did call the local police for protection, and they failed to protect. And I feel lost and stuck that we don't have protection. We're just us against I don't know how many.
Have you communicated at all with the Red Lake Nation?
Yes, I have.
What have they told you?
Just basically just try to stay as safe as possible, have documents on hand.
Mm-hmm. Shantia, this is, I'm thinking listeners right now, we have a lot of stations all across the United States. Just hearing what's being described is really disturbing. It's really chilling. What are you telling your family right now, other members of your family, in terms of what's going on and what the future might hold?
I'm really at a loss for all of that. I just tell everybody, please stay indoors, stay safe to the best of our knowledge that we can. I really don't know. I just stay indoors.
Okay. Shantia, please stay safe, you and your family. I want to go back to Amelia Schaefer, because Amelia, you talked with Jose Ramirez after this experience. What else did he tell you about what occurred last week?
I did, yeah. I was connected to him through Shantia, his auntie, and he basically gave me an account of what happened that day, a full timeline. He had been on his way from McDonald's. He stopped at McDonald's and he was headed to Shantia's home when he noticed he was being followed. Then, as she described, there was that scuffle at the parking lot where officers or agents are seen in her video dragging him out of her vehicle, putting him in the back of their vehicle. He told me he was handcuffed and placed in the back of an agent's vehicle. I believe this is one of the agent's personal vehicles that they were using for work purposes. He said that they drove for about an hour because they believed they were being followed until they eventually reached the Whipple building. He told me that from there, he had to stand outside for roughly 3 hours while he awaited processing and the ability to speak to a public defendant. He said that there was no food or water and that the only restroom facility, which was a porta potty, was locked, and none of the people in line were able to access it. Once he got inside, he had to wait for an additional amount of time until he could speak to that public defender, after which he was released. And that took a total of about 6 hours. He was detained around 11 a.m. Central Time on Thursday and ultimately released around 5:30 to 5:40 p.m. that day. So over 6 hours, roughly 6.5, that were spent in detainment. During that time, he did get one phone call, which he was able to contact family with. But prior to that, I had contacted with Shantia through her video that she shared to Facebook, but they didn't know where he was. And for the family, as she's described, it was a really terrifying situation. He also told me that he'd been told that he had allegedly injured an agent when he was taken out of the vehicle. They alleged that he had assaulted an agent and that he would be facing charges for that. At the time of my most recent story, no such charges had been filed. They told him the agent was in the hospital, that he was going to pay for this, that he ruined his life, that he was going to be sent to a detention facility 2 hours away and eventually would end up in the Bureau of Prisons. And he said overall it was terrifying. He was also confused the entire time. He had been struck in the head and upwards of 5 times, in addition to being jerked around in the back of the agent's personal vehicle, before which he had to wait in this line with no food or water for several hours. So he was really disoriented. He was confused. There was some additional confusion when he was eventually released. But overall, just like his auntie's saying, he's scared to leave his home. He's scared to go anywhere. He doesn't want to be a target. He doesn't want to be to interact with agents again. And it was just, he told me he felt like he was kidnapped. That really stuck out to me. He was placed in the back of a random vehicle, driven around to somewhere he didn't know where he was going. Meanwhile, he told me that he was being taunted. He was being teased by agents while he was in the back of this vehicle, disoriented. His handcuffs were too tight. When I interviewed him last on Friday, he had visible bruises still on his neck and his wrists.
That what you're describing, I mean, really getting roughed up like that. Has there been any thought from the family about filing, these physical assault charges against officers?
I'm not sure I can speak to that. Shantia might know more, but he did tell me in our interview he was interested in it.
Okay. Shantia, can you tell us any more with regard to that?
We have not looked into that at the moment. We would like to. As of right now, like I stated, we are just focused on staying safe and getting the story out there to hopefully help others and just keep our community safe at this time.
Thank you, Shantia. Amelia, what additional coverage do you expect ICT News to provide?
Yeah, so we are continuing to monitor the situation. I have an interview this afternoon with some advocates on the ground in Minneapolis, and I have through Facebook been connecting with community members who, like Shantia, recorded their interactions with ICE agents and posted it online. I'm hoping to connect with some more Little Earth residents and other people who have been questioned by ICE and had their IDs questioned as being fraudulent. So ICT will continue to monitor the situation, and we will have ongoing coverage.
Amelia, what's your thought with regard to citizens taking out their phones and filming these encounters? Because obviously, to have that evidence is really important, but it sounds like people are taking a risk when they do that. From this example anyways, I mean, I think that it sounds like that almost exacerbated the ire from these ICE agents having those cameras out.
Yeah, Jose told me that he was worried that had further aggravated the officer, after which his auntie's video shows the phone is slapped out of his hand and then he is assaulted by the agent. I have seen a lot of the time these videos are a really good way to raise awareness of what's going on and have a firsthand account. I actually had more videos sent to me of Jose's interaction with the agents last week from bystanders. But overall, yeah, I am hearing that the act of recording does aggravate the agents in some cases. And in Jose's situation, he was worried that it caused them to get physical with him.
All right, let's go back to Little Crow Belcourt. And Crow, can you share with us any resources right now that are available to Native residents in Minneapolis, either through your organization or any of the other Native-led organizations? There's a lot of them there in the Twin Cities area.
Yeah, if you can go to the Indigenous Protector Movement Facebook page, we have some QR codes, and then we're accepting donations down on Franklin Avenue at Paulo Grounds Coffee Shop. People are bringing like water, snacks, things for people who are out following ICE and doing patrols. And I really liked what the lady from ICT Indian Country Today said about the tribal IDs. There was a lady from Fargo who is a member and works for the MHA, Mandan Hidatsa Liquor tribes, who was down here for the weekend doing tribal IDs for their tribal members. And Mlatch tribe, a lot of our tribes are sending people here to get their city people enrolled, tribal members.
Crow, I think so many people are looking at Minneapolis and they're shaking their heads because it was just 6 years ago that George Floyd was murdered there. That prompted violent riots at the time. Can you tell us what kind of progress the city has made in addressing racial equity since that time?
Yeah, I see a lot with the Minneapolis police has really changed. Sometimes it's even, we had over close to 200 officers walk off the job after George Floyd. It was just too much for them. So we have a shortage of Minneapolis police here. But our city really comes together, man, when in times like this of crisis. And I honestly think that this is like a testing ground. I think, people think it's only happening here, but they're starting to fan out to places like St. Cloud, Minnesota, which is about an hour away. There's little towns in southwest Minnesota, like Redwood Falls, Minnesota. They're starting to fan out, like 2 hours out into these little towns because a lot of them have a lot of immigrant populations. Mm-hmm. So people who are listening who think that, that it's not going to happen in your neighborhood, trust me, it's coming.
1-800-996-2848. That is the number. If you would like to join this conversation today, we are learning about what is happening right now on the streets in Minneapolis, Minnesota, with regard to Native American people being detained by ICE and also protests after the ICE shooting last week. Again, the number, 1-800-996-2848. Join our conversation. Give us a call.
Tribal Development Partners, helping tribes build toward their goals through 105L leasing and essential facility development, empowering sovereignty, strengthening community. More at tribaldevpartners.com, proud supporters of this show.
Kaufman & Associates is a Native-owned and led consulting firm, supporting Native communities with culturally grounded solutions to shape Indigenous futures. More at kaufmaninc.com, KAUFFMANINC.com.
You are listening to Native America Calling. We're going to speak now with Chief Ann Richardson, who says she was not consulted over plans to withdraw billions of gallons of water a year to accommodate a drying county and a data center. Keep today's conversation going and leave a comment on our website and social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. Joining us now from Indian Neck, Virginia, is Chief Ann Richardson. She is the chief of the Rappahannock tribe. Chief Ann, hello and welcome to Native America Calling.
Hello, how are you today? I'm glad to be here.
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking, and so gracious of you to join us today. Now, the state of Virginia has approved a permit to withdraw up to 9 million gallons of water per day from the Rappahannock River. What would that mean for the river and your community?
Well, it would mean a lot. So what they're going to do is withdraw the 9 million gallons, but not only are they withdrawing it, they're not going to return it. They're going to put it in another river where two other tribes are, the Mattaponi. And so we have our herring, which is a keystone species for us, our herring restoration project that has been going on for 3 years now. It would literally destroy that. And then our oyster grounds that we work propagating oysters for the tribe. It would draw salinity up into those areas and destroy our oyster grounds. So it would really wreak havoc on our river completely. And it's known for its oysters. They're world famous. So it would really impact the tribe economically as well as culturally.
Now, your tribe recently acquired 1,000 acres along the river. Can you describe the land for us in more details in terms of how the project might impact it?
Well, we just acquired 1,000 acres. We acquired 465 acres in 2022. And so it is a 100-mile cliff, a 4-mile feature on the Rappahannock River of these 100-foot cliffs. And the work that we are doing to the Return to the River program is to return our children to the lands of their ancestors and to teach them the river culture and traditions. And it would greatly impact our ability to be able to do that.
This extra water, it's for Caroline County. What will they use it for?
Well, they say it's going to be used for drinking water, but right now, currently, they use 1 million gallons a year. And so if they're using 1 million gallons, why do they need 9 million overnight? They've not done any kind of impact studies. They've not done any kind of feasibility studies. In fact, those studies were approved by the General Assembly several years ago and have not yet been completed, and yet they have moved forward with these data centers and with the withdrawal permits.
Now, county officials say the groundwater supply, it's dwindling. It could run dry as soon as 30 years from now. These data centers, 3 of them that the county has announced it will soon build. Of course, we all know huge quantities of water are required by data centers. How do these interests, both the lack of water for Caroline County and, of course, the data centers, how do you think they factor into what the county says it will ultimately do with the water?
Well, 30 years down the road, I'm not sure what the rush is now to put a water intake in. And so that's very suspect that the water is going to be used for data centers, as well as the fact that now we have, I think it's 2 in Spotsylvania County, which is just north of Caroline County, and 1 in Stafford County, which is north of Spotsylvania County. And so there are like 5 different data centers that are going to withdraw water from the Rappahannock River. But these municipalities are, they're acting like this is isolated. That's just going to be this county that's doing it or this county that's doing it. But it's actually going to be 5 data centers that are all going to be withdrawing water from the Rappahannock River, which will greatly deplete our water supply and the seafood industry that depends so heavily on that river, as well as the biodiversity and the aquatic life that we all depend on.
Now, you opposed this water withdrawal primarily on environmental grounds, but you also contend that the tribe was not properly consulted about this. How does consultation typically occur between the state of Virginia and its tribes?
Well, there is a consultation law in the state of Virginia, but the Department of Water Quality was not included in that. And so we have a bill coming up this session, actually in a couple of weeks, that is going to include that in it, along with some other agencies that we've had dealings with that didn't seem to think that we were important enough to consult with about these major projects that will impact our lands and waters.
Now, the river is your tribe's namesake. How much will this potentially impact your tribal culture? We need to talk about that too.
Well, the tribal culture, all is there in the Return to the River program, is returning those because we were moved off of the river 300 years ago. So the ability to return our children to the river and teach them about the traditional ways of living on the river is extremely imperative for future generations. Like if we don't do it in this generation, it won't happen. And so that puts into peril our culture and our traditional practices and beliefs that are all tied to the river.
Now, there are also non-native interests that have concerns as well, some of the farmers in that area. Are you consulting with those folks in finding any common ground with which to move forward?
Well, we all are a coalition. So one of the farmers whose land was taken by eminent domain, he already had a conservation easement on it, and the county took it for this water withdrawal. And so, there's a coalition of several the conservation groups that we work with in the region, and we're all fighting together to protect this river. It's going to affect so many things, not just the tribe, but just people in general. It's a beautiful river. There's so much recreation that takes place there. People have houses there, little cottages that they come to in the summer, bring their families. It's just it's a lifeblood of our area, and to take that away and deplete that would be devastating for everybody, not just the tribe.
Chief Ann, what's your response to folks who see this as a win for economic development in the area? They'll say, look, the world relies on the internet, fast, reliable connections, also the potential to generate tax revenue from the data centers. How do you feel about folks who take that route?
I'm seeing commercials on it right now for the first time coming on our TV talking about how wonderful these things are. And you only need to go to states that already have them, whose the operation has already depleted their water table, and to see what kind of devastation it's had on their communities. It's not far away to have to look at. And so, I think it's the money is the river worth the money? Do you value money more than you value the health of your community, the recreation of your community, your relationship with the land, with the water, the seafood that comes from that we all love and enjoy? There's not enough money on the planet for us to sell our water and our river. So no, we don't care about that. We have pretty strong moral values and traditional beliefs, and money will be here all the time when we're all gone. But the rivers will move on and continue to bring life if they're not devastated.
Chief Ann, tell me more about the current state of the river. You had mentioned the herring restoration work that the tribe has been involved with in recent years. Tell me more other restoration projects and what else is being done right now just to preserve this river that's so important to your tribe, both culturally and traditionally.
Well, the river herring had been depleted so bad that they hardly could find any. And I can remember as a child, the men in my tribe going on these spring gatherings down at the river. And we had communal cleaning of the fish, and the women would clean the fish, and the men would salt them down, and they would go to every family so that they would have something to eat to sustain their families in the wintertime. So it was really a survival mechanism for us. And to have them so depleted, we decided we were going to try to bring them back because we didn't want to lose them and lose that tradition for our tribe. And so we started about 3 years ago propagating river herring and monitoring them to see when they come back to spawn, to make them successful at what they were doing. And then, if they withdraw the water, it will bring salinity up into the freshwater reaches where they spawn and destroy all of that work that we've done.
Chief Ann, this proposal to withdraw and send water from the river elsewhere, how does it impact other tribes there in Virginia, such as the Mattaponi?
So the Mattaponi and the Upper Mattaponi are both on the river, and what they're saying is they're going to use this water. They're going to treat it with chemicals, and then they're going to dump it into the Mattaponi River. Well, what's in those chemicals? And how will that impact the Mattaponi River? Along with just depleting the water from our river, now they want to infect another river, right? And I think the cost is just way too high. This inter tributary kind of transfer is, we just don't know what will be transferred from one to the other. We don't know what the chemicals that they're going to be treating it with, how that's going to impact the Mattaponi River. And, there are impact studies that have been started, but they didn't wait for the impact studies to be finished. They just went ahead with the water withdrawal permits, with the data center planning, and all of those things without even knowing what the results of that work is going to be on our natural resources or on our water in our own community. So we're already, the Potomac aquifer, which we all are under, that's already low. And so if they continue to withdraw this level of water out of it, what is that going to mean for our own water table in our communities? How are we going to get drinking water?
Chief Ann, what do you make of the county's assertion that they need drinking water? I'm still not clear. Do we know how much of this diversion will actually go to that drinking water?
Well, like I said earlier, they're right now they're using 1 million gallons. And so if they're using 1 million gallons for the population that they currently have, why would they need $9 million? Mm-hmm. And this is going to be in like 20, 30 years down the road. Why do they need it now? And why can't they wait until these impact studies are all completed before they start this? So it's a rush job for these data centers because there's big money behind these. These are all the billionaires that are coming in and setting up these data centers to make more money while the people and the natural resources are paying the bill.
The Rappahannock are among 7 tribes that are seeking to be included in the Chesapeake Bay program. This is a committee that oversees the restoration and protection of the bay. Do you feel Virginia tribes have enough of a seat at the table when it comes to this type of decision making and also the partnerships that go into these decisions?
Well, it's very interesting. I always tell everybody I come from the colonial capital of the United States, as well as the Confederate capital of the United States. And so Native Americans have not had an easy road here in Virginia, to say the least. And having federally recognized tribes here has really kind of thrown the colonial system that exists here for a loop. And so now they're having to accommodate us, which has been very difficult for them. And the tribes are trying to, push the envelope so that tribal sovereignty is respected here, that the government-to-government relationship that we have with the United States can be exercised here in Virginia, but it's been a very difficult time trying to get that to happen. So in reality, the state should have been consulting the tribe about this permit to begin with. But the clandestine way in which the county, and it's not just Caroline County, this has happened all over. These developers come in that are billionaires, they come in and they make these big promises to the counties, and then the counties make these little clandestine deals with them that the public doesn't know anything about. And then when the public finds out and they oppose it, half of the work's already done. And that's
Chief
the
Ann,
strategy.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. Please keep us updated with how this proposal evolves, okay?
I will do that. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, we are out of time, so I'm going to have to wrap up the show now, but I would like to thank all of our guests who joined us today: Chief Ann Richardson, Little Crow Belcourt, Shantia Sosa Clara, and Amelia Schaefer. And please, listeners, don't forget, join us again tomorrow when we will hear about struggles with affordable housing in urban areas for Native people. I'm Sean Spruce. You've been listening to the one, the only, Native America Calling.
Support from Clarkson Potter, publisher of Turtle Island, Foods and Traditions of the Indigenous Peoples of North America by Native American chef Sean Sherman. With ancestral and modern recipes, this cookbook showcases diverse foodways of the continent's regions.
Support by the Gathering of Nations Powwow. The last dance is this April 24th and 25th at Expo, New Mexico. Gone's last horse rider and regalia parade takes place at 4 p.m. both days. Tickets at gatheringofnations.com and at the gates. Repatriation is the return of ancestors and stolen culture. The Association on American Indian Affairs is hosting the 11th annual Repatriation Conference, Feeding the Fire, Advancing the Movement, in February 2026. This fully virtual conference will offer small group interactive workshops, strategies, networking, and more to advance domestic and international repatriation. More at Indian-Affairs.org. The association supports this show.
Native America Calling is produced in the Annenberg National Native Voice Studios in Albuquerque, New Mexico by Kawanak Broadcast Corporation, a Native nonprofit media organization. Funding is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting with support from the Public Radio Satellite Service. Music is by Brent Michael Davids. Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.